everyone. Hello. Hi, give us a wave if you can hear me. This is Anthony, STP Buddies. Welcome, everybody come in. I can see a lot of people joining already. This is excellent. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. That's great. How's everybody today? So we're going to get started in a minute. We'll just give a couple minutes for everybody to come into the live. My name is Anthony, and we're going to start in about a couple minutes time. If I'm sounding okay, just give me a thumbs up so I know that the audio is good as well. Excellent. That's good. That's nice. I'll start off just answering a few questions that we've had so far. Will the live be recorded? Yes, it will be recorded. What we're going to do is make sure that we're going to put it up on Instagram, and we're also going to put it on YouTube as well. If you haven't already, now's the time. Go up to the description on STP Resources. There's a little link there. We have our YouTube channel. We have our Twitter page. We have everything available for you there. So yeah, please check that out. So for the people that have just joined, my name is Anthony. I'm the creator of STP Buddies, and today we're going to be having a live Q&A session with a couple of people from the STP Buddies network that are going to share their experiences, the do's and don'ts when it comes to making sure you have the best application and plenty more. Like I've said to other people already that have already been in the live, yes, the live will be on YouTube. Is also going to be on Instagram Live, so make sure you go into the Instagram description. I've entitled it STP Resources for 2021. The YouTube channel link is there. The Twitter is also there as well, so help yourselves, and it's definitely something for you to look back at after this live. So yeah, we're just waiting for a few more people to come in. If you've had a good evening, give me a thumbs up, let me know that the audio is good, and then we'll get cracking in a couple minutes. If you have any questions, by the way, we're going to start off with the questions that people have sent in. But if you do have any questions, please leave them, and then we'll try to get to them once we've figured out answering all the other questions as well, okay? So we have quite a few more people, so maybe we'll give it about 1 or 2 more minutes, and then we'll get cracking straight away. Audio is crisp. Thanks, Hannah. People are saying hi. Let me respond to a couple of people. So who do we have here? I've seen a couple of the people that are actually going to join us for the live, which is good. Hi Tim, hi Sita, hi Aisha, hi Hannah. So we have a lot of people in attendance. This is going to be a really good live. One for people that want to join the STP, but also for people on the STP as well. A lot of us, we just started in September or October. And of course the coronavirus hasn't kind of been beneficial to our study, or has made it slightly difficult. So for people currently studying, this is the place to be this evening. So if you know someone that's already on the program but isn't in this live, make sure that they're on the live as well. Okay, great. So what's the time? It's 34. Give it about 1 more minute, and then we'll get it cracking. Hi Lara as well. Hi Zoe as well. And thanks for everybody for sharing. This is a new page, a new Instagram page, a new initiative for all students. The purpose of this is to really get across clinical scientists. Who are they? What do they do? And how do they actually look like? People, I'm sure you know, when you ask them, oh, I'm going to work in the NHS. Oh, I work in the NHS for some of the STP students currently in the live. They think, oh, what do you do? Are you a nurse? Are you a doctor? But we know that there's many other roles within the NHS, and that's the purpose of STP Buddies. One, we're going to share our own experiences, but two, we're also going to give back and connect. That means connecting with students, prospective students who actually want to get into the program as well. So that's why we're here. And for the new people joining as well, make sure you've subscribed to the YouTube channel, make sure you're following the Instagram page, and make sure that you're also on Twitter as well. At the end of the live, I'm going to be sharing a few resources that are going to help applicants make sure that their application is the best, is as best as it can be. If you do have any questions, just put them in the question box. I think I can see a couple already, which is good. Yeah, let's make this interactive and just help each other out. Okay, so it's been about 5 or 6 minutes, so I'll do the proper introduction and get things going. So like I said, my name's Anthony. Welcome to the first live of STP Buddies. So I created this platform to share what clinical scientists do. One, for students currently that are STP students in the program working hard in their different specialisms. And two, to shine a light for the students who want to get into the program, who want to get into the pathway, but maybe haven't got the insight, the resources, and kind of the know-how to do so. So this is what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be breaking down what the process looks like, and I'm going to have a couple people from the STP Buddies network to jump into the live and also share their experiences and make sure how can you get the best application out when the application is open in January. So first of all, we have Tim. So I'm just gonna get him into the live and we'll take it from there. Make sure you put your questions down. I've invited Tim, so he should pop up in a minute.
Magic.
Oh, hi there.
Hey, man.
You okay? Oh, it's kind of cut me off, hasn't it?
Yeah, we've lost the top of your head, but we've got my full face.
How's this, okay?
Yeah, I hope everyone can hear me all right.
Yeah, I can hear you, so it's good. It's good.
Awesome stuff. Awesome. Thanks very much for having me on, Anthony.
Yeah, no problem at all. So at first, please introduce yourself to people who don't know you. I know you, of course. Introduce yourself, what you do, where you are you on the STP or not, and we'll take it from there.
Sure. Well, I'm on the STP. I'm a third-year cardiac scientist at Barts Health, and I'm also the co-chair of the London Healthcare Scientist Training Network, which works to sort of help all the London trainee scientists, whether you're from physiological background or medical physics or anything. So you can head over to the London HCSTN Twitter page. You can find out more about us via the STP Buddies followers, and just have a look at our website. There's some good resources up there as well. But obviously, we're not taking away from you, Anthony, today. This is a collaborative thing, as all our scientists are.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. Yeah, so Tim is our first guest here. He's a STP student in his final year. And you've heard about him, what he's doing at the moment, and Tim's going to help us answer a few of the questions just to get the ball rolling for this evening. Now, Tim, in this live, we have students currently in the program, which we'll get to, but we have a lot of students, prospective students that want to get into the program, that they have maybe a bit of anxiety about how to actually create a good application, where to start, even if they're eligible to apply. So I've got a few questions that we'll pick, and then we'll just go from there.
Sure, fire them off.
Okay, so this is a good one. When did you start preparing for the application in terms of questions as well as the actual test?
Okay, we'll start with the questions first. The first time I applied twice. The second time I got on, obviously. The first time I applied, I think I began preparing as the application opened, maybe towards the end of January. And I'm assuming the format will be the same, but it was a list of 4 or 5 questions which ask you to give a little bit of information about who you are, what you've done, and what makes you eligible for the program. In terms of the cycle, I would encourage to get thinking about that as soon as the application opens. It really makes a lot of sense. So you can take time to craft good answers and tailor them to what they're actually asking you, and how you can really sell yourself as a prospective scientist to the national school or to whoever's marking it. And in terms of the aptitude testing, personally, I don't really like doing lots of mock exams because I feel like it freaks me out a lot. So I honestly just gave it a go both times and I passed. But that doesn't mean that's the best strategy for everyone, because I just work slightly better under pressure. I know lots of people who have done lots of practices of both general logic and maths tests, or they're from the same company that operate the ones for the STP. Obviously, these things can change. We have no insight on the application process, but that's how I tackled it, and that's how I know other people have tackled it in the past.
Yep. And I think this evening is going to be very good, because what people are going to see is that people, although it's one uniform pathway in terms of application, but how we all went about doing it is very different. And I hope that you see that this evening. Tim was one of the people that I sent my draft questions to, and even that, in terms of how we worded things, was slightly different. But the main things in terms of the 4 questions, hopefully they don't change. But if they do, we will highlight that to you. There are 4 questions, and they're 250 words each. This is what it has been like for the previous couple of years.
Is it characters? Sorry, Anthony. I think it might be characters.
Is it characters?
I think it might be characters, so it's even less. Oh no, okay. Words would make more sense. Carry on. Sorry.
Yeah. Is one of those two. One of those two. Yeah.
Not very much.
Not very much. This is the thing. There's not very much opportunity for you to sell yourself. So what I had to do, and I'm sure Tim kind of attest to this, was be very specific with what type of wording we used, and trying to jam in as much evidence of, one, our experience, and maybe the extracurricular activities we were doing, and even, our educational background. And I've got a couple points just to run through. So the first one, normally anyway, you're showing your knowledge, motivation, and commitment. So here, for me, for example, my background, my undergraduate was in sports science. In terms of getting my point across and selling myself, I was thinking, okay, what lab work have I done that correlates with kind of why I should be in the STP? For example, my specialism now, I'm a first year, I'm a cardiac student in the STP program. I thought, okay, this may be a good question for me to show that I've built a portfolio of ECG traces that I've collected and annotated. Why would I show that? This shows that I'm actually using my initiative, and it's a good way to kind of sell myself that, okay, my initiative, this is a skill. I'm going to use that same skill in the STP, for example. The second one, which I have down, the second question, is values and behaviors. This is quite an important one, and I know, Tim, you want to chime in. This is where I actually use different resources. So if you're not aware, or you may be aware of the good scientific practices, or if not, a generic PDF, which is in the national school's website, the personal specification for the year I was applying. I went through and I thought, okay, what values are they looking for STP student, and what experience, what have I done in my past that I can kind of merge them two together and present them with a good case of why I should be on the program. Was that similar for you, Tim?
Yes, to an extent. I've just seen a couple of questions pop up. So before I forget, I'll answer those because I think they were good questions. And they're both
Yep.
related to clinical experience or
Okay.
getting work experience. And obviously we're in a time where that's not necessarily possible. Walking into hospitals and getting work experience just really isn't that feasible. But I will say that when the first time I applied, I interviewed for both specialisms. I got an interview for both specialisms I applied for. And in both of those, I didn't have any clinical experience. I never worked in a hospital. I come straight from my master's degree and applied for this. I was actually writing up my thesis at the time, and I applied for this. But what I did do was I had a knowledge of what goes on in the departments. And I think that's really key, like having an awareness of what the career involves. So what tests are important, or what would be expected of I don't know, a genomic scientist or a medical physicist or anything like that. You really have to do that research on your own, and whether that's looking up on trust websites or whatever, or the national body for your specialism. That's a really good way of finding out some information. And then I've forgotten the question you're going to ask me. So
The question was just for the second question out of the four, values and
the
behaviors.
values,
When
yeah,
attacking that, what advice would you give for students
yeah.
that don't really know what to start? Because that question does look kind of like a wishy-washy question, to be honest.
Yeah, it's tricky, but I'll repeat it again. Like the goal of the whole application process is try and get as much in as few words as possible. So be concise, and really everyone's heard of the STAR technique in interviews, and it really applies here. Like try and demonstrate with one story, I suppose, or set of actions that you've done which demonstrate that you have the values, or you're working towards the values that the NHS has. You can Google NHS values and you'll find this big document, and you really kind of got to assimilate those with what you've done in the past. And no one's perfect, but as long as you have an awareness of how you can develop yourself, or what you're doing to try and develop yourself to do those kind of things, and you can get that in 250 words, as have been very well corrected in the chat, you'll go a long way to getting yourself a good score on that question.
Yeah. And what Tim was referring to, all of those details, the PDF is actually in the STP Buddies description. So if you click STP 2021 resources, you click that link, we have a link tree full of information, full of resources, from the personal specification, from the news updates from the National School of Healthcare Science. That's something that you should really kind of keep an eye on. And you can add it to your application in terms of maybe writing down things that have kind of caught your eye in terms of keeping up with science, which I believe is the third question, where you have to display evidence of not necessarily scientific practice, but kind of how evidence of how you're kind of you're into science and kind of value science, to be honest, which is the third one. The fourth question is on leadership. And what Tim mentioned, the STAR, was something that Tim actually told me to do and use as a structure, and it helped a lot, to be honest, because day to day, even if you've had experience in the NHS, or if you haven't, or if you're coming from a BSc or MSc, we rarely see ourselves as leaders. The STAR method is simply your situation, your task, your action, and your result. This way, sticking to that structure, you get rid of all of the faff, all of the waffle, a lot of waffle that I had to get out, which I'm sure Tim can attest to, because he read my draft. There's not a lot of time or space really to kind of go here and there. You have to really hit it direct, and using the resources in the description, or in the bio, sorry, is going to help you out as well. I have a few more questions, Tim, and let's see if we can answer those before we get our next guest on. Okay, so we have one question here. Are applications open early or late January? From your experience, what do you think? Do they normally come early or later?
That's a good question. Frankly, as I applied about 3 years ago, I don't remember when it opened, but just keep an eye out on the National School website, and they'll release
you just have to keep an eye out. And again, the National School is all in the bio. Sometimes it changes, to be honest, but when I was applying, that website, I was checking it every other day,
in terms of updates and things like that. Like I've been on there recently and I found out that they're actually using a different Oriole system or Oriole system for the 2021 applications. So little stuff like that, just to keep you in the know, please visit that website. Let's see what other questions we have. We covered the 4 questions. Could we give a quick summary of the entire application process? Tim, could you give us that?
I could give it a go. So the first stage is you sort of just set up your application, if you like, and you work through personal details, all that kind of stuff. And then towards the end, you will fill out the 4 questions that we've been through already. So it gives you little boxes. Obviously, don't draft it in there. Work on it on Word. Get people to have a look at it. Make sure it makes sense. And then by the time you finish your application, you can pop it in there. You then need to submit it. And then I think in a certain amount of time after that, you have to do your aptitude testing. I can't quite remember the details on that, Anthony. You'll probably be better than me. But then once you completed the aptitude testing, your score or your application will go off to somebody to be marked, or a couple of markers to be marked, and your aptitude test will be automatically marked. And then that is ranked in accordance with your actual score and how well everyone else did. And then you basically pass or fail based on that. And then they will look at all the applications accordingly based on where you ranked in the aptitude testing. So once that's all happened, the marks for the shortlisting of your questions will come back to you, and if you meet a high enough standard, you'll go to interview. And some people are put on the reserve list for the interview if people drop out. And then you have the interview. I'm assuming you'll cover the interviews later, so I won't go into that now. But the interview day happens, however that is going to be this year. Obviously, your experience with the COVID life, I had it back when we were allowed to run around at the Birmingham City football ground. And then after that, you find out if you go onto the programme or not. And then there's a process of putting you into places according to how well you did. But again, that was different for last year because of COVID, and I'm imagining it's going to be similar this year. I'm assuming you're going to talk about that a bit later. I'll just quickly, one thing on going back to the questions. This will be my last thing. This is specifically relevant for people who are in their final years of uni, like second or third year, and they're thinking of doing the STP program. A piece of advice we're given on the STP a lot is like take opportunities that are given to you and just say yes to a lot of things. Showing leadership is quite difficult to do just organically. You kind of need a platform to do so. So if there are opportunities to become a representative or lead groups or do anything, just maybe think about doing that in your last couple of years of uni. I know I developed most of my leadership skills per se in my final couple of years of uni by just saying yes to things and going, yeah, why not? And then the roles evolved and I ended up doing a lot more. So if you do have the opportunity to do things, grab them with both hands, and then you can crowbar that into your application.
Thank you very much, Tim. So that last point is probably for people like myself on the STP and people maybe that they have 1 or 2 experiences left, or when they do get to the stage of interview, it's all about saying yes, to be honest. And a lot of the process, as Tim described, is quite a lengthy process. You will have anxiety like I did when I was applying, or when putting stuff together, thinking, am I good enough to apply? But once you meet the specification, you are good enough. Past that, it's just about showing your skills and why you deserve a place and why you're unique. So thank you very much, Tim. I'm going to have to let you go, and then we'll bring somebody on next. Have a good evening.
Thank you very much for having me, Anthony. Yeah, thanks very much.
All right, cheers. Take care.
Yeah, bye.
Excellent. So before I bring somebody else in, I'm just going to try to reset the room quickly for the new people joining. Like I said, my name is Anthony. I'm a first year cardiac STP student, and this live is for students currently on the program to share tips in between, but primarily it's for prospective students wanting to know how to make the best application, how to sell themselves, how to get over potential anxiety, imposter syndrome, all of these little things that stop us from putting ourselves in the best position. Coming up next, I have a few other students from the STP Buddies network. This is a large network of students ranging from all specialisms here to help you this evening with your application. Before I bring the next guest in, what I'm going to need you to do is go to our bio, STP Buddies network, and in there, there's the Linktree link. In that link, there's a ton of resources and also our YouTube page. We're going to start a new YouTube page. This live is going to be on that YouTube page, in addition to further resources that we're going to have coming out for you guys as well. So make sure you do that this evening. Also, if you have a friend that's interested in applying to the STP program and they're not in this, make sure that they're in this live today, because we're going to be sharing a lot of gems that I wish I knew before applying, that would have helped me in my application. Okay. If you're loving it, if you're actually taking some notes, if there's anything left, give me a thumbs up or put a couple questions in and we'll answer them as we're going along. So I'm just going to take some time to invite the next guest, which is Alice. I've seen the thumbs up, guys. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
I think this works.
Hi. Hi, how are you? You okay?
I'm good, thanks. You?
Yeah, I'm well, thank you. This is something that maybe the audience won't know. Because of the coronavirus, myself and Alice and all the other students that you're going to see haven't actually met in person, because for the first year, we couldn't go up to university, so we had to do university from home. So yeah, we're continuing with the virtual trend. How are you this evening, Alice?
I'm very good, yeah.
Good. So today, you've taken up the invitation to come and spend some time with us, the STP Buddies. Let's hear from you. Would you like to introduce yourself to the audience? Who are you, what do you do, and how things are going?
So I'm Alice, as you've heard already. I'm a first year respiratory and sleep science trainee on the STP, based in Maidstone and Tunbridge Wells NHS Trust in Kent. Yeah, so do you want me to say like how I'm finding it and that?
Yeah, how are you finding the STP? Like I said, the coronavirus unfortunately has kind of not disrupted fully, but has definitely changed how we do things or how we've experienced the past couple of months. So how's that been for you?
So I'm really enjoying it so far. I think my training has definitely been disrupted. I've had to self-isolate for 2 weeks because everyone at my work got COVID and then my housemate did. And then I'm now isolating again because I tested positive for COVID last week. So yeah, that wasn't great. But well, I've been in the hospital. I've been really enjoying it. Like, it has been chaotic, but I think that's just kind of added to the excitement a bit. So I was meant to be doing my cardiology rotation over the last couple of months, but I ended up doing 3 weeks there, then having to self-isolate and then being in respiratory for a week and then isolating again. So
it's been a bit of an experience, to say the least.
Yeah, but I feel like when I've been in the hospital, I've really enjoyed it, and I'm learning so much. Like, it's crazy to think that, yeah, I was in cardiology for less than 3 weeks. Yeah, I feel like I learned so much. Yeah. And I've actually managed to complete most of my competencies despite only being there for 10.5 days.
Wow. I think that speaks to one of the attributes of maybe just being prepared, time management, and maybe even organization, something that we can bring up afterwards. And my experience has been the same. Like I've said, I'm a cardiac student, and 6 weeks at home is difficult for anybody. But to people like Alice and the other students probably on this on this live. We've been able to support each other and get through quite a turbulent last couple months. So Alice, we're here to kind of help prospective students. We were in this position last year, thinking about applying or knowing we're going to apply, stressing probably too much about the online application, Oriel, when is it going to open, and all these type of things. So we're just going to go through a couple of questions, and yeah, we'll just take it from there. So the questions are still flying in, and we're going to take some time to read as much as we can. Okay. So, Alice, we have a question from Lara who says, what's the most challenging part of your role? And 2, we're going to go with, how did you know what specialism you wanted to go into?
Generally, the most challenging thing at the moment is just COVID. I know that's cheating a bit, but it is very I don't know, it's disrupting a lot. So I think trying to stay positive when everything keeps getting cancelled. But I think within respiratory, the hardest thing is trying to get the patients to perform the tests to the best of their ability. Some of them have a lot of difficulty with using the mouthpiece correctly. So it can be difficult when you have to keep telling the patients the same thing over and over again. Yeah. Because obviously, if we don't get them to perform correctly, then the results aren't going to mean anything. So that's probably the most difficult thing within my kind of specific role. Why did I choose respiratory? So I think I've always, I knew I wanted to do something in physiological sciences, because I've always been interested in physiology and human biology. And I studied sport and exercise science, so I've always been interested in how exercise can be used to help treat disease. And I think I went to an open day, and when I found out more about the different specialisms, I just really liked how much patient contact was involved within respiratory, and how building a good rapport with your patients is such a key part of getting the best results out of them. And I think that just really appealed to me.
I think we have a lot of in common in that regard, because I done sports science as well. And beyond kind of knowing and enjoying kind of engaging with human anatomy and learning about that, one thing about cardiac, which is quite unique, is the patient contact through and through. And even when you get to specialize, that doesn't change either, which is something good. Hopefully we can be able to experience more next year. I've got a question leading on from that, and it's this, and I think it's very important. How did you stretch your application across 2 specialisms? Because as we know, in the application process, I believe, if it doesn't change, you're normally required to put down 2 specialisms. So even though you wanted to go into RESP, how did you tailor your application for 2 specialisms, or did you in fact?
So I actually only did apply for 1 in the end. So I was going to apply for 2, but then I decided that I thought I had a better chance if I based it all on 1 specialism. So I actually only tailored mine to respiratory. And I did think about just putting down a second one as well, but I don't know, I didn't in the end. I just purely went for respiratory because I was so sure that that was the one that I wanted to do.
Yeah. I think I done something similar. Definitely, I knew I wanted to do cardiac. I was already working in the department. I'm an in-service applicant, and we'll get onto that later. I made sure that my application was literally for cardiac. I think maybe my second was I'm not even sure if I chose the second. In fact, maybe that was the first time I applied. As I actually got in the second time during my application process, and that shows us how tough actually getting in is. So I think through and through, the most important thing is if you know what you want to go for in terms of your specialism, make sure you've tailored it to that. Here I have some more tips in terms of the 4 questions, and we'll get onto the online test later. Simple structure, we spoke about stars, but point, evidence, explain. There's not a lot of time, but there is time, space for maybe 2 to 3 paragraphs. So that was my approach. And then kind of opening everything from the personal specification, which can be found in the bio, in addition to my previous experience and CV, and kind of weaving those kind of 3 together. So no sentence was kind of wasted. How was your approach? Did it differ?
So I think probably pretty similar, but I think one of my biggest focuses was really trying to get the NHS core values into my answers, because when I went to the open day, the people doing the open day were like, you must get these in, like it's so important. And I think I've really focused on that, and I think that is probably what made my application do like well, was that I just tried to relate everything that I said, all my examples, to the NHS core values. So like working together, putting the patient first, all that stuff. And I think like, yeah, trying to show examples of how you have like shown the values, and it doesn't necessarily have to be like specific to your specialism. So like a lot of my experience, I worked in admin roles in the NHS before I went to uni. So as a receptionist and a typist. So like no clinical experience, but I really used examples from them to talk about how important it was to have, you know, like that rapport with the patients, and the importance of like different teams working together, and like how I saw that in my admin role. I saw the importance of, you know, all the different multidisciplinary teams working together. And I think although it wasn't direct clinical experience, just showing that I understood how these values were important probably did help.
Wow, I think that's quite important, and it's something that can easily be missed, not using those core values. And like I said, that was something that Tim advised me to do, and second time round, it was a success. For the people currently on the program, before we round up with you, what is one thing that you're doing to help you get through the STP during your first year? What's the one thing that you're prioritizing that's helping you day to day, would you say, if you think about it?
So I think my kind of biggest focus has just been trying to slowly progress through things. So like I get a fair time, like when I've been at work, we have to wait 3 hours between each in respiratory. It's just like I'll get on the computer or get my iPad out and start making bullet points for like a competency or something. So I think just using any free time I have just to kind of get a bit done. So it's, you know, I won't be actually writing it up, but just making bullet points of what I could include, or making a note of what I've done or like learnt that day, just so I've got that evidence to come back to and stuff.
So kind of building a paper trail.
I think that really helped with my cardiac stuff, because like obviously I didn't know that I was suddenly not going to be able to train in cardiology anymore. So I think by having like the evidence that I did have and like all these notes, it then allowed me to kind of write up my competencies while I've been stuck at home. And actually I now don't feel like I am that behind. Like I think it has really helped. So I definitely recommend, like, I know everyone says like don't leave your competencies till the end, but I do.
Yeah.
Trying to use that, it does help a lot. Like just doing anything when you can, just a few bullet points, whatever.
Yeah.
Does help.
Every little helps, as one popular supermarket has told us. So thank you for sharing, Alice. Thank you for your insight. It's been brilliant, and I believe a lot of people, especially those who want to get into RESP, can kind of take what you've kind of shared and will help them as well. Before you go, Alice also has an Instagram page where she's also highlighting what she's doing on her own unique journey. So if you want to know more from her and how she's getting on, please follow her on Instagram and on Twitter as well. All right, thank you, Alice.
Thanks.
All right, take care. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, so we'll go, and we haven't got that much time left. I think we have about maybe 20 minutes left. So far, we've spoken about the general application process. We've spoken about the 4 questions, how you need to tailor them. And before we get on to the next guest, who's in a different specialism, I'm just going to answer a couple more questions, as I see there's quite a few building up. Okay, so we have one question saying, are the rotations in one trust? And the answer is yes. So if, for example, you are in Southampton Trust Hospital, all your specialisms will be within the trust. That doesn't mean necessarily they'll be in one hospital, but whatever hospitals, whatever hospitals are connected to that trust, that's where you may be in, for example. So if there's 3 different hospitals and you have 3 different rotations, or you have 4 maybe, the rotations will be there. I got another question saying that how long on average does it take to complete the application? Well, it's hard to say, but what I would say is don't leave it to the last minute, as I don't think that's the best way to put your best foot forward. Things like the questions, hopefully they don't change. They haven't changed in the past. You can get started with those now. This video is going to be on YouTube, so if you forgot about the questions in terms of the orders, they'll be up there, and we'll be sure to give you more information about, okay, specifically what they are. The application itself, in terms of your personal details, like any other application, is not any different, to be honest. From putting in your CV, your education, and all those kind of little things, that's it. The bulk of the application, in fact, in terms of time, the time burden, is drafting your 4 questions. Once that's submitted, you'll get a link past a certain date to complete the 2 online tests. So we can speak about that more, and maybe with another guest. The 2 online tests are logical reasoning and numerical reasoning, or the maths, basically. Logical reasoning is where you have to find patterns between like symbols and shapes, whereas the numerical reasoning are basically all mathematical problem solving questions. For me, for example, it was a long time that I actually used my math skills in that way. So what I did is use the Jobs Test Pro NHS STP package, which is online, and again, we'll promote that as well. That way, it gave me so many different questions, so many different examples for logical reasoning and the maths test actually practice. And in terms of when did I start? I started early as possible. I didn't make it clear, but this is the 2nd time I applied getting into the STP program. Much like people on this live, much like maybe friends of yours that may be on this STP. The STP program is a very competitive program. That's why we're here today, showing you and trying to give you advice to make sure you achieve and get onto the program. Yeah, so that's just a brief about the online aptitude test. If you want some more information, just drop down the questions, and then we'll go through there. I'll try to answer a couple more. Do the aptitude tests have a time limit? Yes, the aptitude tests have a time limit. That's why the practice is very important. Again, they don't give you a lot of time. So for me, I had confidence in the 2nd time I applied compared to the 1st, because I put in the practice. And that's something that me and other people that I know that go into the program, you can't run away from. But it all depends. There's even when you go into the National School of Healthcare Science website, once you submit your application, what they normally do is give you a link to a practice one. And I think there's 1 or 2 practice ones online as well. And again, we'll make that available in the next couple of days in the bio for our Instagram, and we'll put it on our YouTube description. But no, there isn't a lot of time. So that's why practice is really important. And we'll answer one more. If you do well in your logical reasoning test, but not so good in the numerical test, will your application still be considered? Well, there's a lot of kind of myths about how they score, but from most people's understanding is a general ranking. We believe that there's some sort of threshold. We don't know, but we assume that there may be some sort of threshold. And essentially, you just need to do your best. Don't worry about the threshold. Don't worry about one's better than the other. My approach was I had to make sure that I was getting, 80%, basically the majority of my logical reasoning and the maths tests, passing them. That's why the program for me was very good, because at first, in terms of the tests, I was scoring like it would give you maybe 2 out of 10, 3 out of 10, 4 out of 10. But it took me a couple of weeks before I started seeing 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10 for the both of the tests. So thank you very much for that question. Moving on, just because we haven't got a lot of time, I'm going to introduce our next guest, or bring on our next guest. This guest her specialism is critical care, and we're going to see what she's been up to as a first year student, and she's going to help us answer a few more questions. So far, if you're enjoying it, if it's worthwhile, give us a thumbs up. Oh, hi, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm good. Nice to see you again. Virtually,
Nice
we're keeping it together
virtually
with a virtual, virtually for the first time.
Yep,
So
sure.
yeah, if you'd like to introduce yourself to everybody in the live, who are you, what you're doing, and yeah, how's life for you right now?
Sure. Okay, so my name's Ellen, and I'm one of the critical care scientist trainees at Papworth Hospital in Cambridge. I'm really pleased to be able to join today. It's just great to get to see everybody in video, obviously not in person, but it's nice to kind of get to meet all my other STPs. So hey, yeah, and like I said, I'm doing critical care. It's really difficult to say that you're enjoying your time in an intensive care unit at the minute, but I have to say, so far my experience of the STP has been amazing. It's been really eye-opening, and what a great time to join healthcare science in the midst of a pandemic. So
yeah, and I had a few questions this week, specifically on medical physiology and getting onto the program with medical physiology. And I'm aware that that's your degree, that's your background.
That's my degree.
Yeah, excellent. So if you could you kind of bring us some insight as to maybe how you tailored your application one to the critical care pathway? And the second thing I would ask is, how did you kind of make sure you sold yourself in the best way possible?
Sure. Okay. So to start with, I did my medical physiology degree at Leicester. Big up. I've seen a few people join from Leicester Uni. So hey, thank you for joining. Yeah. So medical physiology, our degree, we were really lucky in that it covered a little bit about absolutely everything. And I think if that's not what being a scientist means, I personally don't know what is. You get to know so much about so many different things. First thing. So in terms of relating that to critical care, anytime you look up critical care science, you'll see that one of the biggest words that comes up is physiology. That's because it's an all-encompassing healthcare science, as in, if you've got someone in a critical care bed, you need to know what's going on with all of their organs at any given time and what could be causing a symptom. So that's my first thing, with medical physiology in particular. So just making it really relevant to having learned everything about the body and what you can then apply to if somebody was in an intensive care unit, what might you be seeing and why would that be happening from every different angle you could possibly think of. And then the second question was about, remind me, Anthony, sorry.
So the second question is, how did you put yourself forward in the best light? Selling yourself. Yeah. What were the key things, but preferably things that we haven't spoken about, maybe key important things that you've done to get onto the program? What do you think those things were?
Sure. Okay. So before I even started my application, I got a big piece of paper, as big as you like, as big as you can fit on a coffee table. And I wrote down absolutely everything about myself that I could possibly think of, which pretty much started from when I was in about year 11, what made me choose my GCSEs. And I went right the way back to every single volunteering experience or anything I'd had like that. And I just drew it all out on a big piece of paper. Then I color coded for a long time everything that I could use in those 4 application questions. And I kind of categorized them into which one I wanted to talk about where. Because obviously, you know, we all want to sell ourselves, we all want to say we're great, but it's really about being specific and how specific you can be. So for that, I really drew out each individual bit and said, okay, I want to talk about this one here. And it also avoids you talking about things more than once and blabbering on when you don't really need to. I know I can't really talk about that now, but yeah,
that's
so
a very
just
good
cross
point.
things off as you go.
Yeah, cross things off. And I think I've done something similar as well. Instead of just the kind of board, I had all the questions, and then on one side of my laptop, I had all of my experience. And kind of in bullet point form, similar to yourself, I just attributed, okay, I'm going to talk about the fact that I have an ECG certificate that I done in this question. I'm going to talk about the lab work that I done at university in this question. I'm going to talk about a unique patient interaction in this question. And once I had that, then I thought, okay, what key attributes from the NHS values or from the personal specification can I kind of link them to, as I was mentioning earlier. So it's very good that you've done something similar. So we can go ahead and answer a few more questions as they're still coming in.
Sure.
So for you, how are the working hours in the first year? Thank you for this question.
Okay. Yeah, this is a good question, actually. So the way the working hours work is that whilst you're on the STP, you are on a contract that's usually about 37.5 hours per week. So it's a full-time contract. However, you are gifted 7.5 hours at least paid time for you to use as part of your master's. So for me, in critical care, our shifts tend to be long days. So we work 3 lots of 10-hour shifts, and then we get 2 days off a week. But I know different specialisms based on what they kind of do day to day might split that up into sort of 4 shorter days, so maybe 8 till 4. But for us, it's more the kind of 8 till 6, 7 till 5, kind of just longer hours for the shift.
Longer hours. That's quite interesting. And I guess it's an opportunity to see how the STP experience for people on the program varies as well. So for me, working in London, like you, we're both supernumerary, and what this means, as you've just put, is that we're not permanent staff, so that gives us more flexibility with regards to being taken out to do our practical work or attend our rotations and other things like that. For me, I have 1 full day of study leave, and I work the other 4 days 9 to 5. So in a typical week, I could have 1 day for study leave where I'll be focusing on competencies, getting them done. Out of the remaining 4 weeks, we have 4 left. 3 of those will be for my rotations, and the last one, the final day of the week, I could be back in my department, resuming my normal kind of clinical responsibilities. So yeah, it's interesting that you brought it up, because it shows that once you're even in the STP, our day-to-day experiences can vary as well. So thanks for that question. We'll answer another one. Mm. Du-du-du-du-du-du-du-du-du. Okay,
Oh,
this is
something I am just gonna, I'll point this one out while I remember actually.
okay.
I was someone that applied for 2 specialisms at the same time, so I just wanted to highlight that.
Okay.
I almost wish I hadn't, to be completely honest with you, because I only got to interview on 1 specialism. Luckily, it was the one that I wanted, so that's good. But it definitely makes the application more tricky if you apply for 2 specialisms, if you can really focus in on one. I'll make a small exception for that because I believe someone commented saying they were interested in cardiac and critical care, and the overlap in that one is almost too silly not to apply for both if you are interested in both. Obviously, don't if you're only interested in one, but that's an application that you can easily write. Whereas I applied for cancer genomics and critical care, 2 completely different specialisms, because they were just 2 of my interests. And I just wish I'd kept it as just critical care. Would have made my life a bit easier for the application, that's for sure.
Vascular and cardiac, or cardiac and respiratory, for example. So we have a question here. If you have applied for more, if you applied more than once, what would you recommend to do the year between applications? Would a clinical job be beneficial over a master's? What would you say to that?
So I was extremely lucky in getting on the STP first time straight out of undergrad. I have to say, if given the choice, I would rather have done a clinical job, something like, for us, because we are very heavily clinical, I would have maybe worked as a healthcare assistant for a year just to gain some of those basic working in a hospital skills. I personally didn't have that experience before, as opposed to a master's. But I think if you're in a less clinical setting, just say you're more maybe appointment consultation based, something like genomic counselling, I think maybe there a master's might be more beneficial than a clinical job. It really just does depend on the specialism, and I think anything you can tailor back to what you're applying for isn't a year wasted. So
so for me, like I said, this was my second time applying. The first time I was applying, I was in my final year at university and unfortunately didn't get in. So what I thought, okay, I'm going to go for it again, but I'm also going to work. So I chose to still stay in my specialism, cardiac, and I was applying for different jobs. I worked locum as a cardiac technician, and I eventually got a permanent role. And that role, that hospital, that's where I did apply for the STP the second time, but this time as an in-service applicant. The main difference between in-service and direct is this. Since I, for example, was already working in my hospital, I'm going up against myself in a way, as opposed to once I pass the aptitude test, the interview, after the interview, I'm going to be ranked against other people. However, the application, the online test, I still had to pass. It still gave me anxiety, but on that regard, it's pretty much the same compared to the direct. But I would say yes, clinical experience. You're going to be able to talk about yourself more. You're going to be more confident. If it's in your specialism, you're going to know more as well. So these are all good things. A master's, I wouldn't say it's a bad thing, but that may not necessarily give you the direct experience you need. And let's see if we can go for one more question. Oh, we've got a minute and a half remaining. What we will do, since we have a couple more people on, once this ends in about a minute or so, please rejoin the live, and then we'll just keep going as well.
Has anyone got any critical care ones or anything?
Yeah, should we take, for the last 60 seconds, again, we're going to open a new live after this. Are there any critical care questions? You can put them in the main comments and we'll read them out.
I'll just say there's one here. How would you say the COVID pandemic has affected your first year training? Ours is probably one of the ones that's been affected the least in terms of what's actually happening in our department, because obviously we're the ones that are all over the news at the minute. But in terms of our actual training program, it's just altered it slightly, as in we're probably going to be in the intensive care unit more than planned this first year. But apart from that, we're pretty much business as usual. So.
Okay. So like I said, we have 20 seconds left on this. That's not an issue. Give us 5 minutes or so. Stay on the STP buddies. We're going to say bye-bye to Ellen, and then we're going to bring on the next guest in a moment as well. So thank you very much for sharing. Please follow her page, and we'll see you in a moment.